Welcome to Epic Studio and Natural Light Photography only at Omid Academy. My name is Arash and I've been a photographer since 2009 in San Diego, now based in Orange County. Welcome to the course. Let me start by saying when I picked up a camera, which was the Canon 7D when I first started, I did not know how to autofocus. I manual focused because I had no idea that you can set it to autofocus and the camera does the work for you. I say this so you know that I started from the bottom. I started with nothing and everything has been self-taught. There are many ways to do things. There are many ways to take photos. There are many camera systems out there. I am showing you how I started, how I did it, and how I generate my income using photography. In this course, we're going to go in the studio with our lovely model, Sahara, and we're going to go outside to the streets of La Jolla, where we utilize just natural light in the middle of the day to get some beautiful results. I would always recommend to learning from as many different photographers as possible, from many educators as possible, not just on YouTube, but take courses, try to shadow people in person, and practice as much as you can with your camera, whether you're shooting with an iPhone or a Samsung, or you have a $6,000 R3 or Sony A1. It's essentially the same techniques, the same principles, and you need to practice them so that you're comfortable with them, so that you don't panic, and so that you can go into any scenario and be prepared. Let's dive in. Why shoot portraits? Why shoot glamour? Why go in the studio? There are many reasons someone may want to shoot portraiture or glamour shots or headshots. It can be for professional reasons. It can be for celebrating a birthday. It can be an anniversary gift that they're creating. It can be passports, although maybe you shouldn't do passport photos. But essentially, when you go to a studio, you're going somewhere where that you can control the lighting. You don't have to worry about the sun. You don't have to worry about there being various lights from other maybe tungsten sources coming from a street lamp. You are in a controlled area where you can set up your lights, you can set up the backdrop, you can position the subject how you want him or her, and you can kind of go in and control everything so that you're worried basically about your posing, your technique, your how you want to get the shot. What I would recommend is figuring out what interests you. Do you want to shoot people on their birthdays? Do you want to do boudoir? Do you want to do glamour? Do you want to do seniors who are graduating? You can even dive into pet photography in a studio. But I say try different things so that you can understand what appeals to you and then pursue that. When you kind of shoot everything, you do master none. So you can be a jack of all trades. But if you niche down, if you figure out what makes you excited to go out and shoot, you're going to get more of those clients, more of those customers, and you can also charge higher. So in the beginning, I would advise to shoot many different types of photography in the studio, figure out what you want, and then pursue that. Today we shoot Sahara, who graduated last year from high school, who we also did her senior photos in a studio. We bring her back because she wanted to get some updated shots for her college. This may seem out of the ordinary, but there are people who value photography, and if you offer the services, they will come to you. So Sahara is a model for today who we want to create some beautiful photos for her so that she has them from her college years, so she can look back and cherish those photos. Now, what we just talked about are when a client comes to you and wants photos for themselves, it's a personal basis, meaning when we take photos for those type of clients, we usually, based on the package, create something where they know how many photos they're getting, they know how many retouches they're getting, and they have the option to purchase more, and that they're possibly going to get prints out of it. On the other end of the spectrum, we have our commercial clients. These are our clients who want photos also in a studio, but they're going to be using the photos commercially, which means that they're going to make a profit from them. We charge differently for commercial clients, as you should. If Coca-Cola were to come to you and would like you to shoot their model and their Coke bottle in a studio so that they can run a billboard ad, the price would be about 100 times more than if someone were to come to you and just want a graduation photo or a senior photo or a birthday photo. It'd actually be more than 100 times more, because they're possibly going to make millions of dollars from that billboard, from your photo, and you need to be properly compensated for it. You're not in this to give away photos. You're not in this to give away your art. You are in this to provide value for your clients. I'm not saying charge based on time. I'm saying charge based on your value, which we'll get into later. But keep that in the back of your mind. Pricing and packages. So usually how I work is I charge a session fee. Let's say someone like Sahara is coming to me for her senior or birthday photos. I would start off by telling her that there's a session fee. This session fee is $700 and can cover up to 3 hours of shoot time in a studio. Now, I would then book the studio, and that $700 includes the studio time. So where you live, there's probably multiple studios where you can rent, and depending on if they come with lighting or if they come with different backdrops, they may vary in price. But it should, on average, come out to about $40 to $80 an hour for the studio, depending on if it's a weekday, weekend, if it comes with lighting, different backgrounds, all that good stuff. Today, we are in Hendo Studios in San Diego, and at Hendo, all the lights, all the backgrounds, everything's included. So that's why I love shooting there. It's very spacious, and they also have constant lights, which we'll get into as well, that if they're powerful enough, they're easier to shoot with than flashes. After that, they have a package that they can go with. This package can be based on the number of photos they get edited, which can be 10, which can be 50, 100, whatever you feel is right for you. And it goes based on retouches and prints. So for our basic package, that after the $700 is a $500 package that includes about 40 edited photos, 2 retouches, and a 16 by 20 print that is also retouched. So this is usually enough for our clients for our seniors or birthdays. If there's families, they may want more photos, and they kind of upgrade based on that. And it can go up to $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 if they want albums, if they want multiple photos included, all that stuff. So when people come in, sometimes when they're starting, they go, well, I charge $100 an hour, and I give them all the photos. You're doing a disservice to your clients, because you may not be editing the photos properly. You may not be retouching any photos. You may not be offering any prints, and you're leaving money on the table, and you're not giving them enough value. You're becoming a commodity. Almost anyone can take any camera and snap some photos and just upload the 100 JPEGs to a gallery and deliver it to them via Google Drive or Dropbox. That is a very low level, low tier experience. That may be where we all begin, but that's not where you should aim to be. Aim to give your clients a experience. Give them something where they want to come back to you a couple times a year, where they enjoy taking photos. They enjoy the results. They love the retouches you do. They love the prints that you mail them. All that is part of the experience, and you may want to customize it to a way that is unique to you and your studio, but you should consider going out of your way to create that experience, to give them something that they can't just go on any Facebook group or any Craigslist ad and just pick a photographer where they deliver the same thing. Now in this next module, we're going to actually start with the photos. So let's go. Welcome back. I'm in the studio right now with Sahara. And what I like to start off with is teaching people how to identify bad photos. What's up everyone? This is Arash. We're here today with Sahara, who's our model for today. And we want to go over how to do a studio shoot and natural light shoot and flash shoot, off-camera flash shoot outside. But first we're going to start off with the studio. So I want to go over how to take bad photos first before we take good photos. Because if you can take bad photos, then you can take good photos. So let's start with that. We're going to start off with a very wide angle so you can see how that looks. So we're going to have Sahara standing here right now in front of the light. We got a aperture 300D with a light dome on it, and we're gonna just take some random shots to show you what a bad photo looks like. So Sahara's gonna relax. She's not gonna do any kind of posing because we're gonna pretend she doesn't know how to model, even though she does. So we're gonna take some really, really close up with wide angle so you can see how bad these look. Yeah. You'll see these popping up on your screen, but we just want to see some really bad photos. And why are they bad? Because you don't take portraits with a wide angle And I haven't given her any posing instructions yet, so she's very stiff. She looks like a soldier about to go to the Ukraine from Russia. So that's why she looks stiff. All right, so we got some shots like that, and it's very flat lighting. Nothing's really special about this. So hopefully, it's really hard to make her look bad, but I think we're getting it. All right, and we're gonna take some like this so you can see how this would look. So can you agree these are pretty bad?
Yeah, they're horrible.
Yeah, they're pretty bad. All right, good. So we got some bad photos. Now let's do some good photos. Now here's a bad photo. Let me put it on the screen. There you go. This is a bad photo for many reasons, but if you understand why it's a bad photo, if you can recreate bad photos, which you should be able to do after, practicing with your camera and lens, you can then move on to create good photos. You can identify good photos. You can identify good lighting, good posture, good posing, good angles, all that, so that you're intentional. Now, why is this a bad photo? One, I shot this with a Canon R5, which at this time is about a $3,500 camera. So $3,500 camera produced some garbage results. Yes, that can happen. My lens is a wide angle lens. It is a 14 to 35 millimeter, and it is not flattering. It's good for video if you're filming a scene. It's good for landscapes. It's good for real estate, but it's absolutely garbage for people. So I shot this to show that there are lenses that are absolutely garbage, and this is one of them for people if you're shooting portraits like we are in the studio. So I switched my lens up. I shot with a 50 millimeter. I shot with my 28 to 70. And basically I wanted to zoom in, get as close as I can while still keeping what I wanted in the frame. Meaning if I wanted to get her feet in it, if I just wanted to do waist up, all that stuff. Since we're in the studio, since we kind of wanted to go the fashion route, since she was dressed up from head to toe, it wasn't just like a top where then we would only focus on headshots. I wanted to get a few shots of everything. So that's why I chose the 50, and then I switched back between the 28 to 70 as well. Now, posing is also extremely important. If people have never done professional photos, if they haven't done professional modeling, they do not know how to pose, and it is your job to show them how to pose. The easiest way is to do the pose yourself so that they can mimic you. If you tell someone to move to the right, they may move to the right, they may move to the left, they may not know if you mean you're right, they're right. So I would start off by saying, turn this way, chin down or chin up, or bring the hand by the face. This way they can copy me, they can mimic me, and it's a lot easier. So that's how I would start posing. Now, if I were to take a photo from down low, I'm gonna make someone look taller and bigger. If I take a photo from up high, I'm gonna make someone look smaller. So these are things that you need to practice so that you're aware of. If you're shooting like this the whole time, straight on, then they're gonna have the same type of angle, obviously, the whole time. So be aware of how you're shooting. The next key thing is lighting. Now, there's many different ways to light, but it's also intentionally, what are you trying to show? Are you trying to get shadows on one side? Are you trying to do Rembrandt lighting? Are you trying to do something a little bit more creative? We go into that later on, but I want you to be aware of what type of lighting are you trying to do. If it's someone older, you may want some more flat lighting so that you're not, you're kind of taking the shadows away from the wrinkles. If you're trying to highlight makeup, you would like maybe a different type of lighting. If you're shooting a Halloween shot and they're dressed as something scary, you may want the light to be lower. Traditionally, if you're shooting, I would recommend having the light to one side of the camera, so left or right, and up high enough where it's 45 degrees, so that if it were shooting from this way, the shadows of the nose would fall diagonal, not directly to the right or left, but diagonally. This is flattering. This is how paintings back in the day were made. The lighting would fall off, and it's kind of how it's shaped photography. So for you to find someone a photo attractive, flattering, you want the soft light, you want the soft shadow fall offs in a regular scenario. Now, again, there are times when you may want harsh light, which means you wouldn't use a softbox or umbrella. You would shoot the light straight on. But for most cases, at least you'll see today, we're trying to get a soft look. We're trying to get a nice flattering look on our model. There are sometimes I do shoot straight on with our constant light. But for now, we're gonna focus on soft lighting to get pleasant, beautiful lighting. Let's go to the next one. How do we identify good photos? For a photo to be objectively good, we want lighting, we want posing, we want to be intentional. Again, I'm gonna use that word a lot, intentional with what we're trying to do. Now, if I'm trying to get a nice glamour shot, I would want the subject to be a little bit to the side. I wouldn't want the light to be soft. I wouldn't want them either looking directly into the camera or looking to the side about 45 degrees again. Now, these are things that you can look in magazines or you can look at Pinterest, Instagram to see the different types of photographers and what is constant among them. Meaning you're not gonna find models where they're always kind of looking straight profile because that's not always flattering. And you don't want someone whose face is this way, but their eyes are completely to the right because then you get too much white in the eyes. There were certain things like that that it's kind of a rule of thumb that you may either learn from watching courses or you might notice by studying photos, by studying models, by studying the great photographers, by studying magazines to see what is constant among them. All this said, when you're in a studio, it's easier to control lighting, posing, and all that stuff versus if you're outdoors and people are maybe stumbling on something, maybe it's harder, smaller area to shoot. But one of the other reasons you're in a studio is so that you can control all those. So you just took a photo. Here's one that I'm gonna put on the screen. Is this a good photo or is this a bad photo? You, just based on what you feel, what does this photo look like to you? And you can kind of go, hey, I like her pose, or I like her expression, or I like the lighting, or I like all of them. That's why this is good. This looks good to me. Or I don't like the lighting, or I don't like her expression, but everything else is good. That's why this is a bad photo. So there's also rankings on things. So if someone had perfect lighting, perfect posing, but their eyes were closed, you may consider that a bad photo because we don't have that expression. But if the expression was great and lighting was okay and posing was okay, you may consider it a good photo because the expression would be ranking number 1 in your eyes. Again, these are a lot of things to consider, but when you're practicing, when you're starting out, take the photo, evaluate the photo, take notes. Why is this good? Why is this bad? What can you do to improve? So if you can identify good photos and you can identify bad photos, you're ready to jump on in and start shooting, start directing, start taking photos. Welcome back. So we kind of went into why we shoot in a studio. I want to kind of dive in deeper. So at Hendo Studios, we have 2 Aperture 300D Mark IIs, which are pretty powerful lights. One of them I'm actually using right now, shooting this way into the wall to light myself. So that's my key light. So they have, I believe, 3 of these at the studio, and I utilize 2 of these. To get my way of getting soft lighting, I shoot into a V-flat, which is essentially a giant wall, portable wall that you can move around to get constant, pretty soft lighting. And you can even shoot 2 of these into the V-flat, or you can shoot one into the V-flat and have one across shooting behind the subject so that you're getting nice hair light. There's various ways to do this. Again, you may want to find a photo that you love from Instagram, Pinterest, or a magazine and start off by saying, how do I emulate this photo? How do I recreate this photo? And if you go into that mindset, you can dissect it to see what kind of lighting there is and start with the lighting first. The pose is easier, so you can go into that second. You can see where the hands are, the feet, the direction of the body, the neck, the chin, all that stuff. And if you have kind of a comparable model, you can do that a little bit easier. But lighting is a little bit more difficult. So I would dive in there first to see what kind of lighting that you're trying to emulate, and then you can usually do that with 3 lights. I don't really usually use 3 lights. I try to do it with 2. Usually 1 is suffice as well. In this case, we're using 2 lights. So check this out and see that how you are going to emulate the photo that you want to do so that you are intentional with your photos. That is why I shoot in a studio, so that I have the lights, they're on stands, there's no wind to knock them over, and I can just focus on how I want to pose them after the lights are set. Now, these are constant lights, so when I'm looking in my Canon R5 or R6 or whatever recent camera you're looking at, you see how it's gonna look. When you have flashes, you don't get to see how it's gonna look until you take the photo, because flashes obviously have to fire. With constant light, it's already there and it's a lot easier to see. The problem with constant light is that up until recently, they haven't been powerful enough where you can do something like this. Now that they're powerful, they even have the aperture 600s, which are even more powerful than the 300s that I use. You can even get more power through umbrellas or light modifiers to get even a better quality of light, softer light basically. I'm also not a fan of getting completely white walls, so that I can, in the studio, I can move my model, so it's Sahara for this one, I can move her away from the wall so that it turns darker. So it's not turning black, it's turning more grayish because there's still some light hitting the white. It's a pitch white wall. So when you're moving your subject away and the light's away, that fall off is gonna create a gray background. So essentially with a white background, you can make it white. If you shine a light right at it, it's gonna be white. If you shine light away from it, it's gonna get gray. And if you move completely away from it, then you're essentially gonna turn it black. So for me, I wanted to go with a darker gray so that it's a little bit more contrasty, a little bit more moody, a little bit more dramatic. That's the type of shot I wanted to create with Sahara. Now, some of them are gonna be darker, some of them are gonna be lighter, but for most of them, you'll see that I was going for a dramatic shot. In this next module, we're gonna go over wardrobe and what you can recommend to your subjects to wear. Welcome back. So you have the studio booked, you have your client coming in, and you've already discussed wardrobe with them. At least, hopefully you have. You've discussed makeup, you've discussed hair. Either you're hiring a makeup artist or hairstylist to do it for them when they're there, or they're doing it and coming makeup ready. When they arrive, they're probably gonna bring their clothes with them so that they can change there and you can go over what you want them to wear first, all that stuff, unless they kind of have the experience and they know what they wanna wear first. The main thing to remember is you're also choosing the background based on what you talked about. So if we consider today the grayish background that we're trying to create, we don't want our subjects to wear gray. We want there to be contrast. So I would either have her wear white or black or a color, meaning yellow, red, blue, so that she pops if we're going for a more celebratory tone. If we're going for something a little bit more glamorous, I would maybe stick to black to create that that contrast with her skin tones. And that's kind of what we did here. That's why she's wearing black, and it suits her great. It looks great. It's kind of the vision I had going into this. Next is jewelry. So if you're doing traditional headshots, you don't want any jewelry because you don't want to distract from their headshot. But when they're doing glamour shots or birthday shoots, they can go as far as they want. They can wear necklaces, they can bring glasses, they can bring accessories to accessorize, purses, anything they want. This adds to the shoot, and this is a reason why you do want accessories, because for a lot of photos, the hands are what create a more natural and authentic look. If the hands are like this the whole time, it's gonna give the impression of, being upset. If they're on the hips the whole time, it's going to give the impression that they're a high school junior or sophomore or senior and they're just doing this the whole time. So we can do one hand on the hip for a few, but then we want to move the hands. And when there's an accessory, they can use their hands on glasses. They can throw purses. If they have a necklace or anything like that, they can grab the necklace. They can play with the necklace. It's more natural to have accessories, to have props. That's why I would absolutely always recommend bringing some, so that once you're done with the hands, you can grab the accessories and you can kind of dive in there and you can see what fits their wardrobe, what fits their outfit. And if they absolutely don't have anything, I always bring a few glasses, things like that, just so that they have some props to use. With Sahara, we kind of got through all the props, and I wanted to go even further to do some artistic or weird stuff. So I saw what we had in the studio and how we can utilize it, and it kind of worked out pretty well. It's not going to be great to have 100 of these, but for 5, I think it was cool. It's different than other photos that she's ever taken in her life and that she may ever take in her life. So it's cool to have these. And she was open to it. I obviously asked her if she's comfortable with like the hammer and things like that. And she was like, yeah, hell yeah. So that's why we use those and try to be a little bit creative. In this next module, let's go on how I prepare our clients before the shoot. Welcome, welcome, welcome back. So how do we prepare for a shoot? So let's say we have Sahara. She wants to do her college photos and she does not know where to start. Does she wear a dress? Does she wear a traditional like coat and like a blouse underneath it? Does she wear a hoodie? What does she wear? I host my photos on SmugMug. We'll get into that later. But on SmugMug, I create galleries for my clients. I also create inspo galleries, which you can also kind of create on Pinterest by creating a board and adding photos to it. But I like to have full control. So in my gallery, I create a private gallery and I drop various photos in there based on what I've heard them say or based what they've sent me on Instagram in the past few months, weeks. And I create a variety, meaning I do have a dress, I do have the hoodie, I do have different types of shots so that they can go through and either send those back to me by downloading them or screenshotting which ones they love. And I go choose the ones that you're comfortable shooting and that you may have something similar to wear. So there's no point in picking a yellow dress if you don't have a yellow dress. Pick something that you have, pick something that you love, pick something that excites you. And once we have that, we'll kind of go into, hey, you picked 10 looks. Maybe we can narrow that down to 5. So bring 5 looks and we'll try to get through all 5 in those 3-hour session that we have together, which should be completely doable. But I want to have more looks than we need because sometimes outfits don't work. Sometimes outfits don't fit. Or just aren't flattering, and you need to tell your client that if something isn't working so you don't waste time shooting it. So if we're gonna do 3 or 4 looks, I'll have them bring 5 or 6 so that we can narrow it down. And if all 5 and 6 are absolutely amazing, then we'll shoot all 5 and 6 and we'll just go a little bit quicker so that we make sure we get all those, because hey, if you can give them more photos, why not? I don't really like diving into a shoot unless they've picked photos that they like, because I can see their comfort level, I can see what they like. I don't want to go into blindly saying, hey, you brought 10 outfits, wear these 5, and maybe we want to do something a little bit more risque, or we want to do something a little bit more creative, and they're not comfortable with it. So it kind of kills the vibe, it kills the mood. I want them to be completely aware of what we're shooting, comfortable with what we're shooting, so that when we get there, there's no issues. So I absolutely 100% make sure they have sent me some photos that they love, whether it's from my inspo gallery or from their own Instagram that they found or from Pinterest, so that we have an understanding of what we're shooting and everybody's on the same page. In the next module, we'll go to the actual floor on why I shot what I shot. Welcome back. So Sahara, we had 4 looks that I wanted to get. She actually had a look that didn't work, so we didn't shoot that. But the other 4 that did work, we tried to get a variety of different types of shots. So we got the glam, dramatic, moody shot with the black dress. We also wanted to get I found a tub in the studio. So I wanted to get some shots in the tub. And with the tub, I didn't want to get just a regular type of photo. I wanted to get some with the props. I wanted to make this unique. So it's something that she is kind of like, hey, we took tub photos, but they weren't the same boring type of tub photos that maybe everybody else will take. This has props. This was kind of unique to her because she kind of got into it as well. And with the tub photos, we killed it. We got some amazing results. There is also a tunnel at this studio. So we took a little bit in the tunnel as well, which has some cool, unique lights, and it was its own type of vibe in there. I also wanted to utilize sitting down. So with sitting down, we obviously want to use a chair. So we used 2 different chairs. One was kind of a more elegant salon looking chair, and one was the Bel Air big red chair that maybe Will Smith would be sitting on. So for these, again, I did want to get normal shots. I always want to get normal, regular, ordinary shots and then go creative. So once we get the shots of her sitting down, then I want to get her to move around a little bit. I want her to get shots looking into the lens and looking off to the lens. Again, we don't want her breaking the cheek, meaning we don't want the nose to be breaking the cheek line. We want it to always be here where we can still see the cheek. We didn't want her eyes to be totally to one side where it's too much white. It may happen, but again, that's one of the things I was looking for. And I just wanted to get great lighting. I wanted to get great poses, and I wanted her to look authentic. So with the chairs, we kind of had the legs up. We had her moving around. We had her playing with things. And I thought the chair ones were pretty damn good as well. My main goal was to get the contrast in there with each of them. I wanted the light to be directional from a side where it is creating shadows on one side. I need those shadows there. For myself, I need those shadows there. If it's too flat, it's too boring for me. It's too normal. It's not flattering. I need that mood. I need that vibe in there, and I get that with the shadows. So essentially the whole time I was shooting into the V flat, or I was shooting from one side to get that. Whether she's sitting, whether she's standing, whether she's moving, I'm having her twirl, whatever it was, even in the tub, I'm trying to get that contrast going. For our extra creative shot, I shot one of my lights through this cardboard that I found, where it was basically just lighting her eyes. And I thought that was just something unique, again, just so it's kind of a cool shot, and it's cool for myself to be able to create something like that, and it's cool for her to have something different where it's just not her looking at the camera and smiling, looking at the camera smiling. We get that mood because everyone does have their own personality. Everyone does have times where they're happy, they're angry, they're sad, they're energetic, they want to go to war, they're sad and they want to sit there and just contemplate. And when they have these different types of photos, they reflect those moods as well. So maybe they don't want to post or look at some for 6 months or a year, but one time that photo will resonate with them. And I've noticed that when I've shot with someone, they may post the happy ones for 3 years straight, but there's some that are maybe a little bit more aggressive or moody, more than normal. And those are the ones then they post when they're going through something in life or they're feeling a certain way. So that's one of the reasons I like to shoot variety. And even for myself, I may be feeling aggressive, so I'll post an aggressive one of the model. Because when I post them, I'm not always trying to post something where someone's jolly looking at the camera the whole time, because that's not how I'm feeling every single day, every single minute. So Sahara also had some vibrant looking outfits, and we wanted to save that for the outdoors. So in the next module, we'll go to La Jolla, we'll go on the streets, and I'll show you what we got. Let's go. Welcome back. And now we're going to talk about outdoors. Why would you want to shoot outdoors? Well, you obviously get a different look outdoors. And with outdoor shots, you can have more lifestyle shots. So we can go to a coffee shop, you can go shopping, get a shopping bag as a prop. So you get something that looks a little bit more natural versus a studio. Ideally, you can look for shade, or you can find somewhere where the sun is coming from behind so you can get easy hair light. You don't have to use flash. We're gonna go into natural lights only without using flash, because it can become difficult bringing flash and light stands outside when there's wind. And if there's property, you don't want to really make yourself known that you're taking photos, you're doing a photo shoot. So to stay kind of concealed, we are doing only natural light in this module, in this course for our outdoors. And we're going to try to take advantage of both the shade, and we're going to try to find sun coming from behind to light Sahara's hair. We also want to use props where we can find, so we're going to try to find things that look natural, things that look like what she would normally be doing if she were outside in La Jolla on a beautiful sunny day. So let's go to the next module. Welcome back. So when you're deciding to shoot outside, you want to try to think about, where do you want to shoot? Do you want to shoot in a park, meaning is the wardrobe appropriate for a park, for a beach? Are you looking for somewhere architectural? What are you looking for? Be intentional. Make sure you're doing things that are planned, that fit both the wardrobe and the vibe that you're going for. Don't just let the model or the client choose, because they may not know what goes with what. So for Sahara, although we went to La Jolla, which is a beach, we started up in the streets area and then made our way down to the beach. And we didn't go up to the water, but we went to the cliffs that overlook the water. So we try to find out where I can start off first by getting some natural shots, and we found a coffee shop. When you go shooting in big cities like Los Angeles, Most places are going to require you to have a permit or permission to shoot, and it's kind of a hassle because there's so many people shooting. Permits are an absolute necessity, so you can't really get away with shooting in LA. But in smaller cities, we're actually in La Jolla is in San Diego, so it's not that much smaller, but it's smaller. People are a little bit more relaxed. And when we went to this coffee shop, I told Sahara, what would you like to drink? Got her a coffee, had her sit down to get some shots of her sitting down drinking, just to get the day started like that. It's comfortable. It was a hot day. I had something cold to kind of cool her down, relax, and then we move from there into the alleyway. Ideally, you obviously want to look for public spaces, either street, sidewalk, like that. You don't want to go inside a restaurant. You don't want to go inside a store. You don't really want to be on the property where people are going to come outside, ask you what you're doing. You want to kind of shoot and move on to the next place, shoot, move on to the next place. Find somewhere that's safe, find somewhere that, you're probably not going to have a lot of dealing with cars and traffic, and kind of shoot like that. Now, I'm pretty familiar with La Jolla. I was raised in San Diego, so I know where we're starting. We're going to take the alleyway to a different alleyway and then go all the way down to the beach. In between these, I'm going to look for shade, and I'm going to look for places where I can get Sahara walking. I can get Sahara kind of leaning against walls, things like that. And if someone comes out from one of the businesses nearby and tells us not to shoot there, not an issue, we'll move on. There's a whole bunch of businesses, so it's unlikely that they're all going to come out and ask us not to shoot. But if one does, we'll just continue to the next one and see what we see. The beach is a public area, so we are going to have no issues there. But there is a lot of people there at the beach as well. So we're going to try to avoid getting people in the shots, because I want this to be kind of a special thing where Sahara is the subject. It's not Sahara and the tourists. It's not Sahara and the residents. So that's what we're going to do. Let's go to the next module. For outdoors, it's similar to indoors, where you're going to guide the model, the client, on what they're wearing, what fits the scene, what can they bring accessory and prop wise. So for Sahara, she is going to wear 2 dresses, and I told you that she can bring hats, she can bring jewelry, things like that if she wanted to, but it's not as necessary as the studio, because she can get more action shots while we're outside. She can get shots walking, she can hold her coffee if she has it, she can lean up against a wall, she can go down and upstairs. It's a little bit easier for her to use her hands to do something natural, so that it isn't posed the whole time, as it kind of may look like in studio. So it's more essential to have props and accessories in the studio versus outdoors. Another important thing for outside is if the model is wearing shoes. If she wants to wear heels, for example, she should bring flip-flops or tennis shoes, because there's a lot of walking outside, and we don't want them walking in heels. They're gonna hate their feet. They're gonna hate you for making them walk. It's gonna be a disaster. So have them bring flip-flops or shoes to help them walk around. And once we get to where we're shooting, they can switch it up, put their heels on if they want to, and that way they're comfortable the whole time. We also want to find somewhere like a restaurant that's nearby where they can change outfits. This is pretty critical, because it can get awkward if we have them go to their car to change every time. You don't have privacy and it's hot. So we want to try to find a restaurant, and we were lucky to find the coffee shop where we purchased the coffees, and they were kind enough to let us change there as well, no issues. So we shot on the property, and she changed after her first outfit into her second outfit at the coffee shop. So take this in consideration when you're trying to find the spot where they have somewhere where your clients, your model, can change. Lastly, makeup and hair can be similar to a studio, but outside there can be a lot more wind, and by the beach, hair can frizz faster. So keep that in mind with the hair that the style that they're gonna have with their hair. If they're tying it, not an issue. If it's free falling, make sure that they know that it's possibly gonna frizz. The wind's possibly gonna mess it up, because a lot of people might not like their photos if their hair is messed up, and you wanna try to minimize that by making them aware of it. And if they know that the hair is gonna get messed up or it's gonna get frizzy, have them bring a mirror so they can fix it once you stop where you are. Otherwise, they don't have any way of checking. They're probably gonna have to use their phone, their screen, and there's issues with that. If the phone's dying, if it's too bright outside, their screen might not show it. So plan for this, give them a heads up so everything's clear. All right, let's go to the next module where we're actually getting into shooting. So with Sahara's first dress, I had her get her coffee, sat her down, took some photos, and then we walked in the alley where I saw a stairway on the right side. And I had her go up the stairs and have her come down because there was pretty light falling at her. When we did this, the store owner or manager, whatever, came out and asked us what we were doing. And I told her we're just taking some photos or we'll be out of here in 5 minutes. And she had no issues. She let us continue. I took a few photos of Sahara on the stairs, had her coming down, looking at me, not looking at me. And then there was a mannequin there that was kind of just chilling there. I don't know if it was trash or not. So I had her take a couple of photos with the mannequin. Again, we're trying to use the environment for our photos because we got our ordinary photos and now we're going to try to do some creative things. So if we have a mannequin there and it looks clean, it looks safe to use, why not use it? We're not going to damage it. We're just going to take some and then move on to the next spot. Once we continued down the alley, we kind of went to a hill where there was another little small opening for a hotel or a condo, and I utilized those stairs as well because there was pretty shade there. And I thought that it looks pretty epic with her just kind of standing at the top of the stairs, kind of like she owns the place, and it was a badass shot. We took a few shots there, continued down to the beach and asked her if she was cool with going on the cliffs overlooking the water, and she was absolutely cool with it, so we did that. Now with beach shots, it's so bright, it's hard to, in the middle of the day at least, to get the sky, the water, and your subject perfect exposure. So with the beach, it's hard to get the sky, the water, and your subject in perfect exposure unless you're using some kind of external lighting flash or whatever. And this is a natural light shoot, so I didn't have my flash with me. But I did try to, again, have her position herself where the sun, it isn't coming straight from behind so that we can get a little bit of the sunlight on her and still expose for her skin tones, the back and the water and the sky, and make sure we get all that. The more recent cameras, their dynamic ranges are high enough where you can pull the shadows in Lightroom and Photoshop and make up for that. So I knew we'd be okay with there based on how she was. I positioned her both facing with her back to the sun and a few with her facing the sun, but I tried to have her not always look at me because it would cause her to squint, so she can look to her sides. And then this way I can get some shots with the sunlight on her exposed well, the background beautiful blue in the sky and the water, had no issues. This was just so I have variety for editing and it kind of gives a different look because it's different lighting. The key is always to find the light, find where the light's coming from. Even if it was an overcast day, if you go towards the shade by, let's say, by the wall of a building, there is more shade as you get closer to the wall as opposed to getting away from the wall. So we want to have a kind of perfect area where the background is slightly darker if possible than your subject. So the focus is on your subject. And that's why I like shooting in cities and alleys and things like that, as long as they're safe. And La Jolla is one of the safest places in the world because you can control the lighting that way with the walls from the alley, from the buildings. I know not many places have this, like downtown areas have it. In San Diego, we have a downtown and a Balboa Park that we can utilize the same thing, but there is like thousands of homeless people there, so it's not the best place to take someone because they feel uncomfortable, and if they get distracted, it shows in the photos. So that's why we opted for La Jolla because it was beautiful and we didn't have to encounter the homeless population to deter our model, our client, from not being distracted and paying attention to us. Always offer water, always offer breaks, snacks, things like that, because you as a photographer may be used to shooting for a couple hours nonstop, but someone who isn't used to shooting will get tired, will get thirsty. So offer that. Be kind, be courteous, think of them. If they're in heels and they didn't bring shoes, take breaks by stopping, asking if they want to take breaks or slow down. Be aware of what's going on. If you see people, if you do encounter homeless, or if you encounter guys whistling, let's say at your client, at your model, counter that. You know, be supportive, stand up, don't engage. You know, you don't have to fight everyone, but be on the side of the person you're with, and it will help them. It will help them perform better as a subject in front of the camera. And all around, you will get better photos for them, and everyone will be happy. All right, next we're going to go to post-processing. Let's go. This is the post-production module, and what we're going to go over now is how to edit your photos, and then the second part is how to retouch your photos. So ever since the beginning, I've been editing my photos through Lightroom. So if you don't have Lightroom, you can kind of download it for free. Just go to adobe.com and look for Lightroom. It's I believe it's $9.99 or $19.99 for Lightroom and Photoshop. Definitely, I think it's the best software out there, but it is subscription based. So if you don't want to do that, there's other programs like Capture One, but at least give Lightroom a try because it's the easiest to learn from. So if you're following me, Lightroom is open now, and how I got my photos into Lightroom, because after you take your photos, you want to put them on your computer. So you copy them from the memory card onto your computer. And then once all the photos are there, ideally you shoot RAW. So let's assume you shot RAW. Your raw photos are now on your computer. You open up Lightroom and you go to File, you go to Import Photos and Video, and you select all your photos and you import them in here, and they're going to be in this top tab, this library area. So I've imported them all in here, and you can go to the metadata and add things like a caption. You can add copyright. So, you can put your name here, your company here, all that good stuff. Creator, whatever you want, you can put here. And once you have it set, you can, I'm on the Mac, so I'm gonna push Command A to select all, and then you can go to sync, and it will sync your metadata. You can press synchronize, and it just synced every single photo with the metadata. So all of them will have the copyright of Arash Tebi in there. Make sure you click the copyright place, or you can check all of them. I'll just check all and then synchronize it so that it's gonna synchronize all of them. At least right now, I just changed copyright. So it's gonna have the copyright in there, and it's gonna have the date, the dimensions, all this is already included. So when you go to develop, for example, I'm gonna choose a photo, and it's gonna give us the info on that photo. So right now I am gonna choose, let's say we're gonna choose this one. And if I come up here, it tells me it was shot at ISO 125 at 70 millimeters, f2.0, 1/125 second shutter speed. So this is a raw photo taken from my camera, and these are all the settings on the right that we can adjust. I know it might look intimidating, but basically once you learn how to do this, if you do this once, you can apply the settings to all your photos. So I'm gonna go to select none. I'm gonna go back to the photo, and I'm gonna, I know these were all shot in the studio, at least the studio ones we know with the white backdrop or the solid colored backdrop. We know those are in the studio. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna adjust these for that studio setting. So I know I wanna increase the contrast. I know it wasn't this warm, so I'm gonna cool it off a little bit. I'm gonna increase shadows. This is kind of what I do for most of my photos anyway, and I decrease highlights by a little bit. I take it down -8, -10. I decrease blacks a little bit to crush it, and up in this histogram, it's giving you that info as well. I know this is, again, kind of intimidating, but you can select these for highlights and shadows so that if you clip, it lights up. You see how it's blue right now? That means I've crushed the blacks, so I'm gonna go down. I don't wanna crush them, so I'll go over there, and then if I click this side, it's gonna be my highlights. So it's gonna tell me where, if I'm, you see how it's turning red? Those are blown out. So I don't wanna blow them out, but I don't want them that bright either. I want them kind of in this area. Texture, you don't wanna go overboard with this. It looks like it can get pretty nasty. So I'm gonna go up to about 10 with this. And since I'm shooting a female, I want her skin to look soft, but not that Instagram filter soft. So I'm gonna take this down to about -10. If it was someone older with worse skin, or if it's extreme close-ups, I would go maybe down to -15, -20. But right now, I'm gonna stick with -10. And I am going to not touch the dehaze button. This is if you shoot with a glare into, if the sun's shooting into the lens and there's a flare, or if it looks blown out, this is kind of when you wanna use that. But right now, there's no reason to use that. Vibrance is to control the saturation of pretty much everything except the skin tone. So I kind of take that up to about -15, -20. I like where that is, and I'm going to decrease the saturation a little bit. I don't want this to look super saturated. I'm going to increase the contrast a little bit more. I'm going to bring down the tint to about right about there. I'm going to warm it up slightly. I'm not going to touch the curve because the curve is also to add contrast. It's a different way to mess with the highlights and shadows. There's a popular look where it looks faded. It's a faded film look. Essentially, this is where you can do that. You bring this down and you can get that faded look by increasing your shadows like this. You see, this is kind of the popular, or was popular on Instagram, but it's really amateurish, so I don't do that anymore. Maybe just for like one photo, but not really. Saturation. She's wearing blue, and there's really no other colors besides the orange and red that's in her skin tones and her lips. So I increase red slightly to give a little bit of color in the lips and the skin, but I would decrease every other color because it's not really, I don't want there to be magenta. I don't want there to be purple. If there is from fringing from the lens, I don't want that to show up. So there might be slight green with my lens on this one, so I'm going to decrease that. I'm not going to go all the way down because then it can create a little transparency on the border where that color appeared. So I just go down a little bit. I'm going to take the blues down a little bit because I don't want it to be super bright. I'm not going to mess with color grading. I am going to increase sharpness. I'm going to go to about, I usually go up to about 80 or 100, and I increase the masking so that the whites are not really affected by that. Cameras nowadays don't really need you to mess with noise reduction. You are adding a little bit of noise by increasing the shadows and things like that. So you can add a little bit of noise reduction, but don't go overboard. Otherwise, it's going to show up in the skin and in other areas. So, that's fine. Going up to here is not necessary, and it does not look good. You're making your pictures blurry, basically. But I'm going to add a little bit of more sharpness in there. Next up, I do have this checked for remove chromatic aberration, and I do have enable profile correction because I don't want there to be vignetting. I like how it looks like this right now. And then lastly, I go to the calibration and I increase the saturation of the blue channel just to give it a little bit more vibrance from the blue side of it. And then I press Command A to select them all, and I press Sync. And then you can pretty much select all, but you don't want to select crops or spot removals or transform because it may not have been applied to, you don't want the crop that's applied to this to apply to all your photos because you make crop photos differently. But everything else should be the same. Your contrast, your saturation, all that good stuff. So if I go to Edit, Select None, and I go back to that photo and I go to the next one, you can see all of them have that same kind of calibration applied all around because, again, I went to select all and I went to sync, and everything kind of looks as I want it to. Now, if I'm delivering these photos to my client, I would go through and delete the ones that I feel aren't flattering, or her eyes are closed, for example, or look too repetitive. So like these two look very repetitive, but I would delete this one and I would just remove it from Lightroom, not delete it permanently. Again, you never know when you want to come back, but I'll delete it from Lightroom. And the reason for that was the arm was cut off slightly on this side. This one isn't cut off, so I'm going to keep this here. And then when I know I'm done, I can select all and then go to File, Export for all of them. But I'm just going to export a few of them right now because these are the ones that I want to retouch. So I'm going to right click, go to Export, and we're not going to change things much. We're going to keep it as the file name. We're going to put it in a folder on my desktop named Rugger, and I'm gonna take the quality down to about 90 because there's really not much difference that you can notice between 90 and 100. And I'm not gonna resize it. I would resize it if I'm delivering to a client because the Canon R5 shoots at about 8,000 pixels by like 5,000. It's too much for people. The file sizes are going to be too big. So for like the master files that I'm delivering, I would keep it at about here. So I'm just going to put 5,000 by 5,000, and it's automatically going to keep it at maximum that and go down to 5,000 by about 3,000. And I keep that at pixels per inch resolution at 300. You don't really need to mess with that. You can include copyright and contact info. Again, these are the metadata that's saved there in case someone wants to edit these later. They're going to see that it's yours. Never any post-processing. It's just not necessary. If you're going to sharpen it, you can sharpen it here. You can sharpen it while you're retouching it in Photoshop. No reason to do that here. Watermark, if I'm sending these off for maybe a commercial purpose or for clients to review, you can add your own watermark in there. But for these that I'm going to retouch, I'm not going to add a watermark. So I'm going to export this one. And let's keep going. Let's go to this one. All right. So here's another one that has this on this side. So I'm going to crop this one, take this down, adjust it a little bit like that. And it looks a little too blue for me. So I'm going to actually decrease the blue from the color from the background. See that there's blue in there? I'm going to decrease that, and I'm going to, this histogram says that it's a little dark because everything's on the left side. So I'm going to increase the exposure slightly. I do like how moody it is, but I don't want this, I don't want the blacks crushed basically. So I'm going to increase the blacks on this side, the shadows a little bit, increase the contrast a little bit more, and that's pretty damn good right there. So again, I'm going to go to right, and I already know my export settings were on point, so I'm going to go export with previous, and we got that one. Now, when I applied my calibration to the photos, we applied it to all photos, even the ones that we took outdoors. So outdoors are going to be, I like this one too. So I like this one. Let's decrease that. I'm going to decrease the clarity because it was direct lighting, and it's going to be worse on her skin because it was direct light. There's bright spots here that we're gonna retouch. So I'm gonna go to export previous, and then we're gonna go all the way over, find some outside shots. All right, here we go. So we got to the outside, and it still applied with the same preset that we used for the studio shots, which doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't look that bad, but I would definitely adjust it a little bit by bringing some things down. So let's pick which ones we want to retouch. So again, if you send all your photos to a client usually comes back and tells me her favorite 3, or depending how many she gets, 5, 10 that she wants retouched. But if I'm editing for my own portfolio, I'm gonna retouch the photos before I post it. So I'm gonna look for, see, eyes were closed, we're gonna delete that. But I'm gonna look for photos that I like, that I wanna retouch. So photos that look like she has good posture, has good lighting's kind of, it's natural light, right? So lighting's gonna be very similar, but I wanna see her pose. I wanna see the difference in the photos, which ones look good, which ones are flattering. I like the ones with the hand through the hair, so we might use this, but like for these, the sun's coming right on her nose. It's creating a hot spot on her nose, kind of, so I don't wanna use that. There's the one with the mannequin. Let's find something else. I like the hair shots, so I might actually use one of these. I don't think she was intentional with that. These were the shots that she was walking, but she was in the shade, so it's pretty good lighting. It looks a little cool for my taste, meaning it looks a little bluish. Let's pick one of these where she's leaning. All right, so between these two, I would go with this one, even though her elbow's cut off a little bit. That's okay for me. I'm just gonna crop in a little bit this way. I'm gonna get rid of that line. I don't want that line to show up. And I'm gonna increase the exposure a little bit. and increase the warmth a little bit. I'm just pressing up on the keys to increase the warmth because warmth on skin tones is flattering. If you can imagine when people have died, their skin turns blue. So blue is kind of associated with death. Warmth is associated with being alive, being vibrant. So I do want to get that warmth on her skin tone, and we kind of have that now. I'm going to increase vibrance a little bit, increase contrast a little bit, and I'll go down and increase the reds a little bit more, just from 3 to about 6, 7 right there. I'm going to go to right click. I'm going to go to export previous for this one. Let's move down again. Let's go to see if we see any. All right, this is the one with her yellow outfit. Now, whoops, let's go back. All right. Now that red is indicating that it is blown out, meaning the data is missing in that area in the highlights. So what we can do is we can decrease the, let's do this one. Let's go up. Let's decrease, we can decrease the saturation to get rid of that, but as you can see, it darkened up her skin tone. We don't want her to be dark. So what I would do is I would take my exposure back, I would increase the shadows, and I would decrease the highlights to get rid of that. See? Now, that's gone on that side, and we have pretty good lighting on her. There's a little too much headroom for me, for my taste, so I'm going to decrease that. And then we're going to export that. Export with previous, because again, we know our settings. We like their settings. Now let's check these out that are on the cliff overlooking the beach. The color looks completely off. So if it changed, or if my camera was in auto, or if I just had manually set it, it's wrong. It says that it's at 4221 Kelvin, which means it looks too cool for me. So I'm gonna fix that by adding warmth. That looks a lot better. I'm gonna increase shadows. I'm going to decrease highlights so that we can try to get, now if some of it's blown out, some of it's blown out. I mean, it is what it is. I'm more concerned about her skin tone. Does her skin look good? And it does. So her skin is good. The water is blown out a little bit, but I'm going to decrease the luminance, the brightness of the blues. And I might even increase the saturation. Increase the saturation of the yellow, decrease the luminance of the yellow a little bit. And that looks pretty good. I'll export this one as well. You see how I just clicked a random one and it still looks bad? If I press previous, whoops, let's go back. So let's say I go to this one and I change the temperature. We fix this, we like it how it is, and I go to the next one and it looks bad again. You can press previous and it'll apply the exact same settings, including the crop to it. But remember, you can also hold shift, select all of them, press sync, and then press synchronize, and it will do that to all the photos you selected, as you can see. Now these were shot with the sun coming from above, so that you can see the shadows underneath her eyes, which isn't really flattering, so I don't really like these. These ones look really good because the sun is coming right from behind, and you can see how it's lighting her hair. So I want to find one that maybe I can see her hands. There we go. There we go. I'm going to increase the warmth. It's a little too warm. Increase the warmth. Crop in a little bit. Increase contrast. I like that one. Let's export this guy. Maybe we can take the highlights down a little bit. See how it's blown out here? That's fine. I can live with that. Right click, export previous. All right, now let's say I exported these, but I forgot where I exported them. I'm gonna right click, I'm gonna go to export, and it tells me where I put it. Subfolder Rugger, which is on the desktop. So if I go to Rugger, where is Rugger? Up here. I have my photos that I exported. There we go. All right, in the next module, we'll throw these into Photoshop and go over what I do when I'm retouching. All right, guys, see you in the next module. All right, welcome back. We're in the retouching module. So how do we retouch a photo? Let me start by saying there's extreme levels of retouching and there's minimal levels of retouching. And you will encounter clients who want a lot done and some who will want minor things done. In my opinion, you want a photo retouched so someone doesn't know that it's been retouched, if that makes sense. If you go so extreme that it looks like you put on an Instagram filter, I think you're doing your clients a disservice. It should be minimal and you should get rid of things that shouldn't be there normally. Meaning if someone has a birthmark, you do not retouch that. But if someone has a pimple or if a gentleman has razor burns, those are the things you remove. If there's dirt on their stains on their clothes, if there's things trash on the ground, those are the things you retouch and you remove. If there's stains on their clothes or if there's garbage on the floor, those are the things you retouch so that when they print the photos or if they look at this enlarged, it looks pristine, it looks great, it looks like it's a piece of art. Most people are going to probably look at your photos on their phones or on their computers, but regardless, you want to eliminate the minor things that distract a person from the picture, from the experience of viewing the art that you've created for them. So let's take a couple of these and we're just going to drop it into Photoshop. All right. All right, so this photo right now, I'm gonna zoom in to see exactly what can be improved on. So I'm gonna zoom in to see if there's anything that can be improved on blemish-wise, background-wise, hair-wise, and try to remove it. Now, when you're dealing in Photoshop, when you're dealing with retouching, you want to deal with non-destructive layers. So that what that means is if you, let's say, start working on this piece right here, right on the photo, and you mess it up, let's say, you can undo it, but after a while, you're gonna reach the limit for Photoshop. Let's say if you're working on this for an hour, you're gonna reach the limit where you can't undo it anymore. And you're editing right on the file. So you're messing with the actual file. What you wanna do is create a new layer and edit on that layer. So, if you're taking something, you're editing on that layer and that layer is what you're working on. So that if something happens, you can always just turn it off. Or if it's too much, you can kind of go down and decrease the opacity so that it's not as evident. So if you go all the way down, it's like that. If you go up, you can kind of bring it back. Depends what you're trying to do, what look you're going for or how you're retouching. So I would recommend doing that. I'm gonna delete that. I'm gonna create a new layer and let's go on what I would do to this exact photo. Now she's young, she's beautiful, she has great skin, but there are minor things that I can improve on. So if I go to the clone tool up here, I can very, very gently, now my flow is too high. I'm gonna take this all the way down to about 14 and opacity is fine. I can kind of go over some of these spots that may not be 100% flattering. So you see this hot spot right here? We can kind of go over this. We can go like that. We're basically going to go over the skin and try to smooth things out a little bit, just a little bit. Now, if she had acne, if she had like a wart that had appeared that morning, we can remove that. And if you're not sure about something, if you're not sure if something's a birthmark, you can always just ask your client when you're taking the photo, or even after, you can send them an email, be like, hey, do you want this removed or do you want me to keep it? And then they'll give you their suggestions. But you also don't want them to dictate to you what they want you to remove, because people might say for example, smoothing out my entire skin, make my nose smaller, make my chin smaller, my cheeks shorter, all that stuff. And before you know it, they want you to transform them into someone else, and it's something that's outside the scope of the work. So if your retouching is for basic stuff, which means it can take you an hour to 2 hours to do, some of the requests you have might be things that take 4 hours, 5 hours to do. So make sure it's within the scope of the work, and that's why when you're sending packages, it should say there that it's basic retouching. And then if they ask you what's basic retouching, you can kind of go over that so they can see what you're talking about. Now, the skin, we can also go use the healing brush, and again, just go over things like this. You can see, you can go on and toggle this on and off to see if it looks really obvious. If it does, you can, again, decrease it. But I usually use this to get rid of the, I usually use the spot healing on the actual layer to get rid of these things up here, these hairs that are coming out. Remember, we want to keep this natural. We don't want this to be super obvious. I do see some markings right here that I might want to work on a little bit. Just trying to smooth it out a little bit. Again, very, very subtle. And you would want to have a layer for skin and a layer for other stuff like hair or background. And the reason for that is usually for skin, once we've retouched it, we want to go back and figure out, and if we go to the blending options, we can grab this and make it a subtle, make it less where it's only applying it to certain parts of the skin, meaning the mid-tone, highlights, the shadows, so that it's more subtle. Again, we're going for subtlety. We don't want this to look like it's been retouched or there's an Instagram filter on there. Now, let's hypothetically say that the client was, let's say Sahara was saying that she likes the retouches, but she doesn't like this tricep of hers that's bulging out, which I've gotten before. So I'm going to press Shift, Option, Command E to create a new layer. Now this is a layer created from everything below it. So if we turn these off, we still have this layer. If we turn this off, the layers are gone. So if we create this new layer, I'm going to go to Filter, I am going to go to Liquify, and we're going to decrease her tricep. Now, again, I wouldn't normally do this. I'm only doing this if she was complaining about it. If she's like, my arm is too big. Now, you see how I kind of ruined this image by removing the backdrop as well because it was from the edge. Now, if I press OK, you're not going to see that there. And the reason is the layer is below it. Now, if I toggle it on and off, you see that it's using the layer that was already there. So that's why we still want to keep these, make sure you're not deleting anything. So that's the difference right there. You can decide if you like it or if you hate it, but basically that's how you decrease things with the Liquify tool in Photoshop, which is over here. You can always do more in Photoshop. You can mess with colors and highlights. You can, add your own type of toning to it. Check it, see how you like it. You can add curves. These are basically your controlling contrast. I don't really do this here because I've done it in Lightroom. So once I've done it, I'm usually where I want to be in Lightroom before I bring it in here. This is usually just to, go through the blemishes, if there's hair, things like that. If the color still doesn't seem right, then I can go into color balance. If it still seems like it's too colorful, if it's the saturation's too high, we can go and decrease the saturation a little bit through here, or you can choose a color and decrease that saturation. See, if I increase it, I see where it's affecting. So I always increase first to see where it is, and then I can decrease it. So very, very subtle. You can see if you like that or not. And then once I'm done, I go to File. You can save this so that you save a copy. And you can save it as a Photoshop file so that you can edit this later. But after it's done, you can go to File, Save as a Copy, and we want to save it as a JPEG. So it's going to save as a copy in the same folder that it was at, Format JPEG, and you can press Save. And I usually go for the level 10 quality. I don't go for all the way because you can't spot the difference really. So unless they're looking for a certain file size, I usually deliver it at 10. If it's like commercial work or I know it's being printed or something, sure, I can go to 10, 11, 12, that's fine. But usually I go to 10, press OK, and there is my file. So if we bring this here, that's before, that's after, that's before, that's after. She's beautiful, so we can stick with the before. And that's kind of how you retouch. You just bring it into Photoshop and you can do more. Let's bring this one in there as well. So since this is a full body one, and I don't really see anything to do for this one, I would right click or double click it, and then right click and duplicate the layer. And I would go to filter. Sorry, I wouldn't go to filter. This is a little secret to make people thinner. She's already thin, but this is a very, very subtle thing to do. So I'm pressing Command and I'm gonna increase this by just a little bit so that she looks a little bit taller. And people usually don't know I've done this, but they know that they look better and they can't put their finger on exactly what I did. So this is a little secret. So I increase her height this way. It kind of slims her down, makes her taller, makes her, she likes the photos. Clients usually like the photos more. So that's a little secret I'm throwing in there. Again, we can go to liquify. We can slim her down even more if someone was requesting it, although try to tell them not to. There's no reason. If you already look great, there's no reason to do that. But if someone's requesting it, that's how you would do it. Sometimes it's in the arms they request. You can kind of go down. Now, what I'm going to do is, you see this this ship over here? Let's say this is distracting and I want to get rid of this. Now, there's many ways to do this. You can go to the clone tool and you can select, hold Option, select the part of the water that's clean, bring it over and kind of just press down. And you have it. See, the ship is gone. Before, after. Now, that's one way to do it. The other way is you can go to the patch tool and you can select what you're trying to remove and then just move it over. And there you go. That ship is gone. Photoshop's pretty neat. It has a lot of options. So that's all I would do. I wouldn't really mess with this picture too much. She looks great. This is the before, this is the after. Go to File, go to Save As, Copy. Save it as Photoshop first, but once you've done that, just select the JPEG, save, and we got it. All right, next module, we're gonna go over on where do I upload my photos. Let's go. Welcome back. All right, how do I deliver my photos to my clients? So there's many ways to do this. People use Google Drive, Dropbox, all those things, but I don't think those are ideal. I personally use SmugMug. They're not sponsoring me, they don't pay me anything, but I have been using them for years. You pay an annual membership, I think it's about 140 bucks. You pretty much have unlimited space for your photos, and I create a gallery for each of my clients. So the first thing I do is create a gallery to put all the edited photos in there. And then once they're in there, I copy the link and I send them the link. And you can also select all and press the download button, and they email you links to download all your photos. So I send them the link to view the gallery, and I send them the second link to download them all at once. Now this link is only active for 2 weeks. So I tell them, hey, you got 2 weeks to download this. And it kind of ensures that they do download it and they don't wait months and come back to you and say, hey, I forgot the link, or please send me the link again. Now this is cool because they get the original quality. It's a zip file, so as long as they do it from the computer, they have it on their computer and they can just unzip it, everything's there. And for weddings at least, or if I take a lot of photos, I'm basically delivering to them a couple thousand photos sometimes, maybe I did an Indian wedding. It was probably like 6,000 or 7,000 photos. So it takes care of that, no issues. I think the limit is 5,000. So I would create 2 galleries if it's over 5,000 photos. Once I do that, I then retouch the photos and I create another gallery, which has just the retouches in there. And I send that and I go to, I right click protect it, because I want them to look at the photos first and approve the retouches. And once they've done that, then I send them again the download link and I remove the protection so that they can right click and save it, all that good stuff. This just ensures that people are taking the time to download, taking the time to approve, and they don't come back later and say, oh, I didn't look at this, or oh, that was the wrong photo you retouched. I've been through all these in the last 12, 13 years, so I know what I'm talking about. You will have people that will, it may seem that they're trying to take advantage of you. So this prevents that. And that's it. You have your photos online. You can keep them there as long as you have your membership, and your clients can access the gallery as long as you give them permission. And worst case, they can click the down arrow in the upper right-hand corner of the gallery to download the photos anytime they want. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching the course. Hope you guys got a lot out of it. If you have any questions, reach out to me. This was an Epic Studio, an Epic Natural Light photo course. You saw how I shot the photos, you saw how I edited them, and how I retouched, and how I delivered them. So you're ready to get started. Grab your camera, grab your lens, go out there, have fun, be creative, get it out of your system, get what your art that is built up inside of you out there, and put some goodness into the world. This was Arash over at Omid Academy. Thank you.